Today's reading is from 7,000 Ways to Listen. In later life, the great Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges said, "I feel I have been reading the books of astronomers, but never really looking at the stars." I don't view this as a confession of a life wrongly lived, but as a poignant reminder of the inevitable cycle of staying true in an ever-changing world. The constant challenge is to lift our eyes from our treasured knowledge and realign our being with what rings true, not once or twice, but endlessly. Our obsession with getting somewhere makes us forget that the first path of living follows direct experience, while the second path follows the conclusions we draw from our experience. Meaning well, we often drift from what is true and forget that our allegiance is to the first path. Let's take these words into the silence. So I know today is a day that God has made for each of us to live freely with love in our hearts. And I know every aspect of this service is God expressing. Every word that is spoken, every note that is played and sung, it is all God unfolding. So everything unfolding in this church today is God showing God how life is to be lived. And I thank you, God, for this oneness, this time together that we are sharing, and this love that we are. And so it is. Amen.
So I ran around and checked all the breakers. Everything's good. It'll cool down in just a minute, I promise. No music stands in the way today. Good. Last week, Kyle is so tall. He had his music stand right at face level. And every time I walked over here, there's like this music stand covering my head on the video. So we're trying to be a little more cognizant of things, you know? Just got to pay attention. So happy Mother's Day. Today is the day when we honor that person who is probably most formative in our lives, the one who gave birth to us and fed us when we were infants and changed the majority of the diapers and made sure that we got food and packed a school lunch for us and all of those things that moms do that are so necessary. You know, and mom who showed up at our graduation and cried at our wedding and was grandma to our little ones and all of those things. It's a giant job. And if you're not a biological mother, I want to tell you that you are nonetheless responsible for children everywhere. I ran across something yesterday or the day before by Anne Lamott, who is one of my favorite authors. She wrote, "The main thing that ever helped mothers was other people mothering them. A chain of mothering that keeps the whole shebang afloat. I am the woman," she wrote. "I am the woman I grew to be, partly in spite of my mother, and partly because of the extraordinary love of her best friends, my own best friends' mothers, and from surrogates, many of whom were not women at all, but gay men." I say me too. My mother's best friend was my third grade teacher, and she changed my life through her mothering. And my friends' mothers and my own good friends, especially the gay men, grew me up and mothered me, and I've had a long chain of mothers, and I'm really grateful to all of them. And I don't know about you, but as far as my biological mom goes, I didn't give much thought to her interior life until I was older, until I was over my own sort of self-obsessed phase. And then I started thinking, I wonder what my mother's interior life was like. She was a very complicated woman. She had lots of insecurities, mostly because of the way she was not mothered. She had there was quite a few gaps in my mother's mothering. She had major depression that sometimes left her hospitalized and sometimes in bed, and she lived vicariously through her children, which is hard on the children. It's hard on the children. But at the same time, she was so intelligent and she loved life, and she was well-read and articulate and had an incredible soprano singing voice. My life has a soundtrack. My childhood has a soundtrack, and it's my mother singing "En Belle de Vedrimo" from Madame Butterfly. She walked through the house singing that all the time. I didn't like opera much, but as a kid, but even then I could recognize that her voice was extraordinary. It was really beautiful. And after my 30s, I started asking Mom about her life. Like, what was it like? And some of it she didn't want to share with me because it wasn't pretty. I picked that up from other people. But there was one story that really stuck with me because it explained so much about her. I think I brought cat hair with me. Stuck to my face. I never go anywhere without it, you know. Anyway, my mother told me a story about herself in her late teens, and she was invited to sing in a show at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. It was their way of, the chorus, for example, was made up of potential singers for the opera company. It was the way that they auditioned them. And all she had to do was get herself from Ridgefield, Utah, which is like nowhere, to New York City and feed herself for the time she'd be there. And her father told her that she couldn't earn a living singing anyway, and they didn't have the money to send her. And so the dream of her heart was squashed. And she grew up and, went to nursing school and got married and had children and didn't speak much about that dream of hers. And her father didn't do it with any malice at all. He did it because it was common sense, right? It was common sense that you would say something like that to your daughter. And I think a lot of us do that to ourselves, don't we? We do what the conventional wisdom tells us to do. And in my mother's day, you grew up and got married, and you might have been a nurse or a teacher. There's one other thing I forgot, a secretary. Those three things you could do, but outside of that, you were really pushing. I mean, this is the 30s and 40s. It wasn't done. It just wasn't done. It wasn't appropriate. And if you had other ideas, those ideas would get shot down. And so thinking about my mother, I realized that most of us at some point realize we have ignored those urgings of our hearts. We've ignored the dreams of our hearts to do the practical thing. And our society layers this whole set of expectations on us that keep us from really being keenly aware of what our hearts are telling us. We make choices based on what our heads tell us instead. All that common sense stuff. And what I have come to know is that if we pursue or choose to do something with that 8 hours or 10 hours a day that we work, that we don't love, because we think it'll give us money or prestige or let us fit in, at some point it starts to feel really small. Our life starts to feel really small, and we can actually get really depressed. I know I sure did. I went to law school after years of basically being a secretary, and then a glorified secretary, and then I went to law school, and I was pretty successful at the practice of law, but my life was totally empty and formless. And it wasn't until my heart spoke to me so loudly I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't pretend that it was talking to somebody else, that I shifted and said, okay, I'm going to go this way. And I took this path of ministry because my heart was telling me to do it. And I don't have an empty, formless life anymore, I'll tell you. It's very rich and full and wonderful.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Rita. I'm glad I'm here too. glad I'm here too. You know, if we start to feel this urge to live a different way because it matters for the rest of the planet, our logic and intuition and thought might tell us, you know, it's too hard. And so we don't do it. And then we start to feel really detached from life, really fragmented. I hear from a lot of people that they want to change the way they eat. They want to be healthier about it. But it's just too hard not to go through the drive-thru. You know, it's so much easier to drive through the drive-thru and grab a burger than it is to learn how to create something healthy and delicious for yourself. If our hearts, and I define heart as the place in us where divine and human come together. It is the meeting place of the divine axis and the human axis. It's the place where logic and intuition and thought and feeling all come together. If our hearts nudge us to care more for those around us, to be different in the world, to take better care of life, our heads often tell us we'll get hurt if we do. And so we find a way to stay separate from life, from those around us. And we feel lonely and we feel sad. And I've sure done that, you know. Lonely, sad, and armored against anyone getting in. And all these ways of not following our hearts leave us depressed and sad and fragmented and hardened and lonely and detached. And yet I'm reminded of what the Buddha told us over and over again. No step on the spiritual path, which is life itself, right? No step on the spiritual path is ever wasted. I think we're a species who, you know, as we've grown up on this planet, have pursued money and prestige and ease and self-protection to the exclusion of the richness of life that's available to us. And we've been doing it for a long time, and so what we see in our society is more emptiness and more fragmentation and more depression and more loneliness and sadness. When I read that less than 25% of the people in our culture have a confidant, I'm kind of blown away. I mean, can you imagine being a single parent without anybody to talk to about raising your kids? That's very sad and detached, isn't it? It's very sad and detached. So I think we've been doing that for a long, long time, and that pursuit of what our head tells us is common sense is starting to show up in our streets and in the health of our citizens and in our environment for sure. But no step on the spiritual path is ever wasted. And we were created to evolve, and we continue to evolve. And I think we're getting to the point where we're starting to understand how vitally important it is to listen to the heart, to listen to the urgings and whisperings of the still small voice that says, you might want to do it a little differently now. You know, you might want to try something different. There's a nudge in us, an urge in us to be more rather than have more, and an urge to reach out and love what's around us rather than separate ourselves from it. I think we're starting to learn to listen to our hearts a little more, and how to live from our hearts a little more often. And I think we're beginning to understand that life is much more than what appears on the surface. It's much more than common sense could ever hope to explain. That we are much more than our bodies and our thoughts, and that when we start to lean into the wisdom of our hearts, life starts to get really juicy and rich and satisfying. And living from our hearts, of course, means, because it's the place of intersection, it means we integrate our emotions and feelings as well as our thoughts. It means we use all the wisdom that we possess, the wisdom of the emotional and the intuitive, as well as the intellectual and the logical. And that gives us access to the powers of creativity and discernment and compassion that we're born with. We just forget about them all too often, I think. So I want to talk about this wisdom of the heart in a couple of ways. One is simply, I told you the story of my mother because it's such an object lesson to me, to pay attention to the urgings, the deep urgings of your heart, the spiritual heart. But I also think that we need to practice listening. We need to practice connecting with the spiritual heart, because we often miss what it's trying to tell us. We're not practiced at listening to it. And of course, practice is the key word, because that's how anything changes, right? That's how we change anything, is we practice it. So when we choose to practice paying attention to our hearts, then the next time our heart has something important to tell us, we might be more receptive. We might be more receptive. I have these printed out, and they're on a half sheet over on the table for you, but I want to walk through a couple of exercises that help us bring mind and heart into some sort of coherence. And so the first one is to simply let your attention be on the space of your heart and just breathe. And then begin to breathe as though you were breathing into and out of the heart, very slowly and deeply. Into and out of the heart space a couple of times. And then think about, bring forth, activate a genuine feeling of appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. And as you continue to breathe, just feel the good heart feeling that appreciation brings you. It's a 45-second practice. And if you stop and do it a couple times a day, you start to become more aware, moment by moment, of the whispered wisdom of the heart. And the next practice will help when we get stressed out. When we have those days where everything seems to jangle and it gets worse and worse and worse as the day goes on. This is a time out to activate the heart's wisdom in those situations. And so first, just breathing, we declare a time out. And again, imagine the air entering and leaving through your heart. And put all your awareness on that breathing, rather than on whatever it is that's trying to stress you out. And just continue to do that until that charge of emotion is neutralized. And that 30 or 45 seconds can change the course of the whole day. And you can stop that tightening spiral of stress. And by the way, you will be much more productive. That's for your thinking mind. And the third practice is called the Heart Lock. It comes from the Institute of Heart Math. And it's for any time you are in difficulty or physical pain or mental suffering, or when you just want to touch that deep wisdom. So again, we breathe into and out of the heart. And we bring up again that genuine feeling of love and appreciation and care for someone or something in your life. And we let it fill every part of our being. And then we give it to ourselves. We give ourselves that love and appreciation, so that it's directed not only at that person or thing we appreciate, but ourselves for our very existence. And then we send it out in all directions. A wave of love, a wave of appreciation, a wave of compassion to all of those around us and to our whole world. And so you have several very quick little practices that will not only help you get out of a pinch or a stressed out moment, but will open you up to the wisdom of your own heart. You can do them anywhere, anytime. Marc Chagall, the painter, said, "If I create from the heart, nearly everything works. If from the head, almost nothing." So this is an invitation to try bringing the heart into everything that you do, into your work, into your relationships, into your alone time, into your spiritual practice. Because I think, Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, change your thinking, change your life. Somebody else, I don't know who, said, change your life by changing your heart. And I think Ernest would agree because, he reminded us over and over and over that without the fire of the heart, without the creative energy of feelings, no change gets manifested in our lives. My teacher used to say a thought plus a feeling equals a manifestation. We have to have the heart and the mind in coherence if we want to really live in that place of ease that we know is possible. And I think the more that we invite the spiritual heart in and listen to its guidance, the more life we have. I think the more that we integrate the wisdom of the heart, the more love we have. And the more we embrace the expansiveness of the heart, the more peace we have. And the more coherence between head and heart, the more joy we have. And I think that's how we're supposed to live, is in love and peace and joy and creativity and expansiveness. That's really living the life that we came here to live, not being pinched and sad and lonely and afraid. And I think the secret is to connect the heart to everything that we do. And so this week's invitation is simply to do that, to remember that there is a way to bring the head and the heart together and then come from that place. And life becomes a dance instead of a trudge. And so I invite you to allow your awareness once again to fall into your heart as we remember that there is no place that spirit is not, that there is no moment in time not fully and completely filled up by God, because God is all that there is. That God that goes by 10,000 names yet is one presence and power, one wisdom and intelligence, one love and joy. And it has expressed itself through all creation. Everywhere we look, we see God. Every person we meet is a manifestation of God. Every flower we enjoy is the beauty of God. Every moment of time contains the peace of God. And right where we are, that is that spark of divine life within each one of us that gets us up in the morning and connects our hearts and our minds to all that exists, to all life, to all creation. And so I know for each one of us, a greater manifestation of joy and peace and love and expansiveness and creativity and compassion. Each day, we grow a little bit more into who we came here to be. Each moment, we experience a little bit more of the joy that is our birthright, of the love that we are, of the oneness that is the truth of our being. I know that each one of us joyfully connects heart to head, to word, to action, to thought, so that all that we do is filled with the grace and Spirit of God. And knowing this to be the truth about us, I give thanks. I give thanks for this community and every bright and shining light in it. I give thanks that we are able to come together to remember and to celebrate the expression of God as us. I give thanks for this beautiful, beautiful Mother's Day and for all those who mothered me and everyone in this room. And from this place of deep gratitude for life itself, I release these words knowing that Spirit, God, the universe always says yes to us. And so it's already done. And we see it unfolding now and now and now. And so we say together, and so it is.
I am just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life.
We are all just drops within a stream, flowing towards an ocean of light.
We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I am just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where we're going to, then I can see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
Amen and amen. And we now have an opportunity to give in support of our community and also just to stop and be grateful for all of the blessings in our lives. Gratitude is the attitude that says yes to the universe and makes welcome more of all good things. So I invite you to just take a moment and think about all of the blessings that you have, all those people who mothered you, this beautiful spring day, this community and all those in it, and all the other blessings you can think of, and just let yourself be filled with gratitude. And whether you are able to give today or not, as the basket passes your hands, through your hands, please bless the abundance and prosperity of this community so that we are able to continue to grow, to shine, to be all that we came here to be. And let's know together, gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
Gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Barry Ebert wrote that, huh? He's the same guy who wrote the song about, you know, if your cell phone rings, we're going to surf you out of here. Yeah, he's hilarious. He is hilarious. It's a wonderful song. Thank you, Becky. So the first thing I would like to do is ask some strong, I think maybe one, maybe two, one man, to take this back to the table so that people can grab flowers on their way out. Look at them all, like, come out of the woodwork, I love it. I need a strong man. Thank you, Keith. So be sure you take a flower on your way out. And I would like to invite Teresa Napke up here. First, I'd like to thank Teresa. Come on up. Because she put together a crowd that did wonderful things yesterday in our grounds. They are beautiful. And Teresa would like to thank a couple people too.
First of all, I want y'all to walk, you know, you saw beautiful flowers on the way in here. We got all the way halfway around the building and we had fun. It was hot, but we had fun. And I just wanted to, if you all can stand up for me, who was here yesterday, I'd really appreciate it. We have Andy, Angie, Sandy was here, Maggie, Julie, Melissa, Doug, Philip, Clara. Clara did the windows. And Max, if it wasn't for Max bringing us the mulch, Max doesn't even come here, but he uses our facility. And he is just the most wonderful man ever. And if we hadn't had that mulch, we'd have been pulling weeds all afternoon, but not doing as much pretty work. And I also wanted to let you know that we're going to start meeting the first Saturday of every month to keep going around the building and do along the street and all that and just help the place look pretty. So if you would like to join us, I'd love to see you. Thanks. And that's 9 to 12, first Saturday of every month.
Thank you, Teresa. Fabulous work, y'all. Thank you all. It really looks good. Oh, I see Henrietta. You want to come? Henrietta wants to come tell us what they're doing, what the kids have been doing. Hey guys, how are you? Happy Mother's Day. Oh, we just had one that was lost. Here we go.
Hi everyone. We have Christopher, Sebastian, Jack, Evan, Catherine, and Miles, and we wanted to wish you Happy Mother's Day! And this is our artwork for the day. I'm sorry, behind us. You may not see it all that well, but this is based on our meditation, which was an enchanted forest. And we colored it because the goblins took all of our colors out. So we colored it back in and give it love and color. Happy Mother's Day to everybody who takes care of anything in the world. Thank you.
We're going to skip this song because we got 12 other things going on. Thank you all for being here today. We're gonna skip this song because we have a raffle and I don't want people to be here till noon because then they'll be mad at me. We do have a raffle coming up. This is our Mother's Day gift basket. Thank you guys for being here. You're gorgeous. They're amazing, aren't they, those kids? So, someone gets to win this fabulous basket. I have been so tempted to like sneak it open and eat the chocolate, but I refrained. Some days, you know, when there's no chocolate to be had in this place, it gets really scary.
Oh, somebody's whose name's not in her paper.
Yep.
Is your name in here? No.
Michelle, happy Mother's Day to you. And you don't even have to share the chocolate. It's all for you. Thank you to everyone who bought a raffle ticket. And congratulations, Michelle. A couple of quick things I want to tell you about. Today is the last day to reserve a space at the really big yard sale. If you have stuff to clear out, reserve a space. The forms are over on the table. We also need a couple more volunteers. So if you can spare an hour or two, sign up, because we will have a center table. So if you just have stuff you want to donate and you don't want to bother with the rest of it, we will sell it for you and the proceeds will come back to the center. So we need a couple more volunteers to help out with that table. That is next Saturday, May 16th, from 9 until whenever people are done. It is also time, once again, for our annual fundraiser, Cooking with God. The forms are over on the table for you to figure out an event that involves food and fun. And choose a date and tell us how many people you want to have there. And here's how it works. We set up like an auction for all the events, and people bid on the ones they want to attend. And the high bidders get to go. You know, say you have 8 guests and you have 10 people bidding, the top 8 get to come to your house for food and fun. They pay the center the bid amount, and the center benefits, and you benefit by creating another source of community in your own home, plus you have a great time. It's a wonderful, creative way to share some love with your community. So come up with an event and submit your event by Sunday, May 17th, and then they will put together the bidding catalog, and pretty soon we'll all be trying to figure out how we squeeze in all those wonderful events. Next Sunday is a busy day. It's the first picnic of the year, so bring something to share, and we will provide the grill items and undoubtedly some handsome, wonderful men to cook them for you. It's always a good time. So join us for the first picnic of the year, May 17th. June 6th is Dayton Pride. We will march in the parade and have a booth on the square, so join us for that. The following weekend, June 13th, is the first Yellow Spring Street Fair, and we will again have a booth there. So come and wander the streets of Yellow Springs and spend an hour or two at the helping to hug the crowd. Teresa will be there with her free hug sign, I bet ya. If you will take a look at the back of the bulletin insert, the place where it says mark your calendar, you'll see all sorts of things happening. And today there are a couple more things I need to tell you about. The first one is that the first LGBTQ ministry meeting will be in the sanctuary right after the service. So if you would like to come and help get that LGBTQ ministry off the ground, I almost, LMNOP, yeah. We're going to name it something. So anyway, stay here, hook up with Stephanie in the green shirt, and she will be organizing that. The other thing is, if you're interested in the church softball team, the other person you should see is Stephanie. Yeah, she is our softball goddess.
We're in trouble.
I usually catch the ball with my head, unfortunately. I'll be on the cheerleading squad. That's good. That's a good place for me. Here's the really, really important thing I have to tell you. Do not dare to miss, and I know, Kenny, you're not going to be here, but none of the rest of you dare to miss May 24th. I know it's Memorial Day weekend, but we have something amazing and big and wonderful and special to tell you about that day. So be here, please. If there is anything you would like prayer for after the service, you can talk to one of the women in the blue, teal, or white shawls. Just ask them for prayer and they will take it from there. They're here to give you that gift of a 1-minute miracle. If you would rather, you can put in a prayer request in the chest that's on the table back there. Just write it out and drop it in there, and the practitioners will pick it up and pray for you during the week. Did I miss any of these essential announcements? Oh, good, I didn't. So let's stand up and do our closing affirmation and our closing song, which is We Are One, and then everyone go and have a fabulous Mother's Day. The wholeness of the universe is seeking expression through me. Its nature is goodness. Truth. Beauty. And wisdom. I allow it to shine through me. Today and always. And so it is. Have a really wonderful week, everybody.